Hi, I'm Brandon Pickett, and this is about using media to enhance worship. Just so happens I'm standing in really one of the oldest continuously running pawn shops in America right now. And as you can see, we've got amps and we've got guitars and all those things that you probably use every day in worship. But we're going to be talking about other things as well. We're going to be talking about videos and PowerPoints. We're going to be talking about social media, Twitter, Facebook, chat rooms, and something you may not have heard of yet, but you will pretty soon. It's called a QR code, and how you can use that in your bulletin or in your publications, or maybe right up on the screen of your church on Sunday morning. But let's get right into it and talk about using video to enhance your worship service. First off, a lot of people ask, where can I get videos? I have sermons on truth, or I have sermons on giving, and I'm looking for videos. Well, you know, there's plenty of sites on the internet that you can download videos, and I'm including some of those on a little outline that you'll receive. But some of those just really quickly, and I'll read them right off this paper. The first one is worship1media.com. If you go to worship1media.com, you'll not only get videos, but you'll figure out what the background music is in the key that it's in, so that way you can then produce your worship set as far as what keys and key progressions based on the video that you can start with or end with. There's Igniter Media that has a lot of very funny videos as well. Of course, you've probably heard of GodTube and Bluefish TV. But then there's also some that are free. Free videos are always great. People love to hear about free videos, ones that you don't have to pay for. Well, there's some at essentials.tv, and then there's another one at onemission.tv. And some of the videos I'll talk about today, I didn't pay anything for. I just downloaded them last night. They came in an MP4, and I was able to import them into any of my presentation software that I have, including PowerPoint. So that's something we'll talk about in just a minute. But let's say you say, well, I don't want something that was pre-produced. I want something that I can shoot, or that my team can shoot, depending on if you're a small, medium, or large church. Well, you know, you can take any kind of camera and go out and for very cheaply shoot some video based on the sermon or the theme that you're going to have that week. In fact, it's very important to make sure that whatever Sunday you have, or whatever Sunday night, or some of you may be doing Saturday night services, that you theme that out. That helps when you're looking for songs to use, that helps with videos, that helps even with the backgrounds that you're going to use for PowerPoints. But you can shoot that in a YouTube style. You can shoot that in a movie style. You can go out and be very dramatic with it. What about just using your little flip phone or your iPhone? I've seen that used. And you can go out and you can get MOS, or which is called Man on the Street interviews. And you can use those Man on the Street interviews to enhance the worship service. You can use it even in between sets. If you finish with your 3 songs, you can immediately go to a video from Man on the Street interviews. And so that can enhance your worship service. Let's talk about PowerPoints really quick. We'll come back to videos, but let's talk about PowerPoints, because PowerPoints can really enhance your worship service, or it can detract. Because what I always say is less is more when you're talking about PowerPoint. PowerPoint was never intended to be everything I say is going to be on the screen point by point. It's less is more when it comes to PowerPoint. The other thing is graphics are king. We've got a PowerPoint called Synergy with very little words, and just a lot of different graphics. People pulling on ropes on one side and pulling on the other side, and showing how synergy can actually make the things that you're doing stronger or faster, or your growth can be quicker when you have synergy among the people of the church. And how do we use that in Scripture? We talked about where 2 or 3 are gathered, there Jesus is. We talked about that a rope that has more strands to it, 3 strands, it's going to be stronger than 2 or more than that. So, and also pictures are worth 1,000 words. Use slideshows. Slideshows have been around for years and years and years. But now with some of the technology that has, especially with iPhoto, if you have a Mac, you can use the Ken Burns effect on your iPhoto in one click, and you can have those photos move very slowly and dissolve between each other. You look like a genius, but you've used software that came free with your Mac, and you just clicked one time, had the Ken Burns effect with your iPhoto. I just did this last Sunday, in fact. I went out on a something called Gone for Good. The church left on Sunday and went out and served the community all day. And I went around just taking pictures. I had maybe 100 and some pictures. I imported them into iPhoto. I made sure that everything was dissolved at 5 seconds apiece. I clicked the Ken Burns effect and then exported it as H.264. You know, if you know any codecs, you know it's H.264. You export it as that. The guy loved me when I got to the church. I had it for him. It actually took me about a total, including exporting, an hour. That's all I took. Actually, most of it was exporting. It took me maybe a half hour to get the pictures I wanted, click the buttons, and it was done. So you can look like a genius. You can have some great slideshows with music underneath that can enhance your worship service. Okay, let's talk about presentation software. Presentation software is always something that people are asking me about. What could I use in my church? I'm tired of using Windows Movie Player, or I'm tired of using PowerPoint. What can I use? Well, let me go through just a few. Obviously, the most expensive and probably one of the most widely used is Media Shout, and it has all the bells and whistles. But here's the good thing and the bad thing about Media Shout. The good thing is it can do just about anything you want it to do. It can use any kind of media player that you have. The bad thing is it's very expensive and it takes a lot of training to use that. So your lay leaders or your lay volunteers that you have, they may not be able to pick it up as quickly. And so you may be looking for something a little cheaper, a little bit easier. Let me go through a couple of those. Pro Presenter, if you have a Mac, is great presentation software. What else? Easy Worship. That is great because it comes with extra licenses already built in. So you can, rather than paying for each license, you maybe have 4 or 5 licenses that come with Easy Worship, and they can go practice that at home on their own computer. The other thing is Live Worship. You might want to try that out as well and see which one fits you. The main thing is pick something that your church or your ministry needs, not what anybody else does. Everybody looks at Andy Stanley and say, oh, what's Andy doing? Well, you're not Andy Stanley, and neither am I. So make sure you find something that fits exactly what you need and what your people need in your church. Audio clips. Obviously, here we are around all this audio equipment. Don't forget about audio. You don't always need video and you don't always need PowerPoint. Sometimes a little audio clip while you're in the middle of the service, even the pastor could stop and pause and have an audio clip of something that he's talking about. Maybe he's going back in a history story and he's talking about D-Day, or he's talking about something else. How about a little audio clip from there and let people use their imagination? That's something we sometimes forget about, but audio is a very powerful tool as well. Also, iMag. I just want to touch on this. A lot of churches are getting into 2 and 3 camera shoots with image magnification on the screens. Be careful it's not distracting. Be careful that the person that's actually punching the buttons between the cameras thinks like you do if you're setting up the whole worship service, or thinks like a producer, because it's not just punching buttons and getting it back and forth. It's also enhancing that worship service. We don't want to get too distracting. We don't want to get too shaky. So steady as she goes with your cameras. Get good steady shots and just keep it simple. All right, now let's talk about video a little bit more and about storing is the word, storing video through your worship service. So if you've got a great theme, you can use video all throughout. Let me just give you a few highlights, a little points, maybe tips about how to do that. Worship service openers, you can start your service cold with video. And Worship House Media is a great place to look for that. If you want to start your worship service, sometimes we forget we can actually start cold right after a countdown or whatever. We can start with a video right off the bat. Using video behind the song service, behind the words, as long as it's not too distracting, you can use some video to enhance what the theme is, or you transition between songs. You can use a quick little 30-second clip even. Announcements. Hillsong.com/creative. If you go to that website, you'll find out, it's a little instructional video there, about how they use video to enhance their announcements. They can make them humorous, they can make them dramatic, and it's not very expensive to do that at all. It just takes a little bit of time, a camera, and somebody willing to get in front of that camera and doing it. Using video to strengthen the offering. You know, obviously your offering is as much a part of the worship service as anything else. So why can't we use video to enhance that? There's a pastor that I know that every single offering time he uses video to show what missionaries are doing out in the field with their money. And I tell you, he saw his offering skyrocket when he showed his members and those people visiting what they were doing with the offering, using video in the offering, using video in the message. And I love this. In fact, there are times that I'm asked to preach at different churches, and I never go anywhere without a video to enhance the theme of my message. For example, if I'm talking about how we are in a lost and dying world that needs Jesus, there are 3 great videos that you can get free off of essentials.tv, and it's called A Lost World, it's called Share the Truth, and it's called Seize Your Divine Moment. And I use those throughout my message. I may start off with that lost world, and it's just a man on the street interviews with dozens of people talking about how they don't know who God is. They could care less about God. In fact, God to them is a tree, or God is anything that they want Him to be. That really sets up my message to say, hey, we've got a problem here, right here in River City, if you want to say. You know, we've got big problems. And this is, I'm showing you on the screen. Next, I show that there's a remnant. And so I have a next video that shows a remnant of people that do believe, but don't know what to do with their belief. And then finally, I have my last video. This is a very powerful video that I end with, that shows about how someone did seize their divine moment to share Christ with someone who was at death's door. He was about ready to kill himself. And so these videos really enhance the message. Don't think you just need one. You could use 3 short videos to enhance that. And also tell true stories, if you can, through video. There's a story called Miracle of a couple in Tucson, Arizona, who they found out their baby was going to be born with deformities, and the doctors were saying that they needed to abort that baby. And through that, the wife was able to witness to the husband, who was unsaved and he was an atheist, really. And the church came in and helped, and it shows how through them keeping the baby and the ministry of the church, this man got saved, and he's now leading other people to Christ. So it's a great true story of a couple that has gone through maybe what some of these people are going through right now in your church. Finally, you can close the video with a promotion. You can use humor. If your next sermon series is about prayer, there's some great humorous videos about how your prayers sound to God, that you can find those on essentials.tv as well, free downloads as well. Or you can use some cool announcements with somebody, or you could use the members of your church to go out and talk about some future things coming up. I used a guy who was a car dealer, and he went out on his car lot and acted like he was some used car dealer, and he was trying to get people to come to the next event, and people liked that, and that was just something humorous, and it was free for me to do. I just went out and took about a half hour. Finally, I want to talk about social media. Social media, and that's where a lot of our media is going, to computer, to internet, to social media. I don't have to tell you about Facebook. A lot of you probably are using that. I get invitations all the time for events at churches. I see photo montages from churches about their events. It's a great way. If you don't have a Facebook account, it's free to set up, and you can set up a Facebook community with your church and let them talk among themselves, and you can also get a temperature of certain things in the church through Facebook. The invitations are great because you can get a kind of an idea of who's coming to certain services or events. So Facebook is great. Twitter, don't forget about Twitter. Twitter allows your members to stay up with you, maybe, or you to stay up with them and what's going on in their lives. The other thing is, I'm going to tell you a neat website called Paratweet, Paratweet, paratweet.com. Here's an idea. How about using Twitter in your service? You can have members, they may be looking at their phones anyway at the time, finding out when the service is going to end. So why not allow them to use their phones for something really good rather than just finding out when the restaurant opens at 12 o'clock? Why don't you allow them to look at Paratweet, okay, or actually use Twitter, and with a hashtag, which is the number symbol, with a hashtag, they can, depending on what you choose that hashtag is, say hashtag First Baptist Church, they can Twitter questions, and you can show them on the screen. Of course, it will be moderated. And some of this is free as well, or you can pay a fee for this. I think they go up. It's like good, better, best. Let me give you another example with Twitter, with Paratweet. you can have a survey, and you can predetermine what those choices will be. And you can say, what was your hardest day this week? Was it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? Or what was the scariest thing you've ever done? Was it jump out of a plane? Was it talk in front of people? Was it interview for your first job? Was it? And you can actually have people Twitter their response to your survey live right there, and then you can show it at the end of the service and find out what people were doing, or you could do it in the middle of your service. Just an idea. Check out paratweet.com. You can do the same thing with texting. You can have people text to a certain number and then show it up on the screen. Of course, all this is moderated, so you're not showing something that you weren't prepared to see in the middle of your service. Chat rooms. Let me tell you about livechurch.tv, something they do with chat rooms, and it's very interesting. During the service, through chat rooms, they have people, of course they live stream their service onto a certain website, but through chat room, they can have a counselor ready to go to answer questions, to give counseling, to pray with people even online. And they have sometimes more people attending their online service than they do actually coming to the live service. Now, I'm not suggesting that that's what we want, but if there are people who are home or checking you out online, that might be something where social media is going, where you might need somebody, just a volunteer who is trained in counseling, who can counsel people or answer questions about your church live while your church is going on through a chat room. Just an idea. All right, blogs, obviously. Here's an idea. Ronnie Floyd in Arkansas, he does something called BetweenSundays.com, and it's a very interesting blog of what he's doing between Sundays, and his members love it. So it might be something that you might want to think about. Surveys. You can always survey your church, and there's some survey engines, surveymonkey.com or polleverywhere.com. You can use those to survey your members on certain issues. I had a pastor who was thinking about going to 2 services, and he just wanted to see what his members thought about it. So he surveyed them and found out that they were fine with it. He was the one who was scared, and so they went to 2 services. That might be an idea. You could ask members to submit videos about certain topics, like YouTube style. Sometimes the youth loves to do that. Sometimes members would want to do that. And then obviously you check them out and screen them before showing them. But that might be an idea. And finally, let me show you something that's brand new that's coming down the pike, and it's called QR codes, or quick response codes. It came out of Japan, and it's starting to get some traction here. And let me just show you. Maybe they can show this full on screen, but this is a QR code. You've probably seen it when you've gone to the grocery store, but you can now freely set up a QR code online and put this in your bulletin, in your newsletter. You can even put it in an email that you send out. And what does this do? This connects people through their phone. If they have an iPhone or a BlackBerry or some smartphone, you can have a free QR code reader. And what they do is they scan the QR code with their phone, and it automatically does a number of things. It can register them for an event. It can allow them to go to a video of what you were talking about today, or it can show them the sermon notes of what you were talking about today, or it can take them to a Facebook page that has more information on something or other. Pretty soon, I believe, it will also connect with e-commerce, and it will allow them to give online just by scanning a QR code. So that's something that you could do right away, and there's QR codes. Just Google QR codes and you'll see hundreds of links come up. And you can generate QR codes. You can have it without a logo. This is the BBC logo, but you could put your church's or your ministry's logo right inside it. And you can scan that QR code and connect them with whatever you want to connect them with. This is social media, and this is probably where we're going to be seen. If you get Time Magazine or Newsweek, or if you get any magazines like that, probably pretty soon the Liberty Journal will have this. It's coming, so get ready for it, and then figure out how you can use new media to enhance your worship service, to enhance your ministry. Thanks so much for joining us on really using media